We're talking Seattle Seahawks football on the Our Lads Football Network, Our Lads Football YouTube channel. And when we talk Seattle Seahawks football, Corbin Smith makes an appearance as usual. How's it going, Corbin?
Good. Thanks for having me, Greg, as always.
It's great to have you, Corbin. And, it's interesting that I remember last year we were talking about, I'm pretty sure it was last year, we were talking about how Seattle was, I think it might have been even around this time that they were a nice little sleeper team for the postseason. Keep an eye on Seattle. And things didn't work out. But this year I'm getting the same vibes. I'm even getting them more so because obviously the change in the coaching staff. So there's a little bit different, excitement level and all that kind of stuff. But doing the research for the team, obviously I don't follow them every day and every minute like you do, but doing the research for the team for this interview, it's getting me more and more interested and excited for Seattle fans about the potential of them to make a serious run.
Yeah, I think that this is a different situation than a year ago in the sense that this team's defense is what's carrying them right now. At this time last season, it was the offense. They were putting up a lot of points, and they had to because the defense was not playing well. But the growing pains in year one and Mike Macdonald's defense, it looks like they have gotten past those. And some of it's been personnel-related moves. You got to give Mike Macdonald a ton of credit. The two linebackers that they signed in free agency, Jerome Baker and Tyrell Dodson, neither one of them was on the roster at this point.
No.
They made the moves. They made the moves to move on from those two because Mike Macdonald, Pete Carroll was a secondary guy. Mike Macdonald's a linebacker guy. And Mike Macdonald clearly was not happy with the play that he was getting at the second level of the defense. So he worked with John Schneider. They go out, they get Ernest Jones from the Titans. Ernest Jones has been a game changer for this defense. And then the rookie next to him, Tyrese Knight, has been fantastic. Just got the rookie of the week from the NFL this week. So they have got a really good young linebacking core now that is ready to get the job done. The entire rest of this defense has kind of followed suit off of the way that those guys in the middle are playing. Leonard Williams is playing like a defensive player of the year the last month. And then their secondary, Devin Witherspoon, Reek Woolen, Josh Jobe. I can't believe that Josh Jobe is a player that we're mentioning here. He was a practice squad guy early in the season. The Eagles cut him in training camp, and he's been a revelation in this secondary. But they're giving up 13.7 points per game in this 4-game winning streak. And two of those games are against Arizona, and a lot of people have been saying, well, look at the competition they're playing. Arizona had won 4 straight right before that first game. Arizona was red hot, and Seattle ended up pouring water on that. And the Cardinals now have lost 3 straight games. So Mike Macdonald is in his bag, as Devin Witherspoon likes to say, and it seems like he's really figured things out on that side of the football.
Yeah, that bye, it's like a dream buy situation for Seattle. This is the kind of buy changing, defining moments that you just dream of every season in the NFL. You go, this is what the buy should be all about for my football team, because it's amazing. Everything, not just, of course, you could just say, oh, they won 4 straight since the bye. And by the way, all 4 were upsets. And now they're an underdog again this week, which we've been talking about this on our on one of our channels, like not understanding why Seattle's getting no respect again as the home dog here against the Packers. But just taking a look at all the changes that were made during the bye, offensive line, you mentioned the linebackers, just everything just seems to be coming together just so well since then, even though Connor Williams decides out of nowhere to retire, and you would think, well, that's going to be a big issue. And so far, it hasn't looked like it's been a big issue.
No, and that's another one of the personnel changes, and that one wasn't made, at least based on what we've heard. I think this is just an opinion from me. This is what I think happened. I don't have any sourcing on this, but I think that Mike Macdonald, he did acknowledge that they went to Connor Williams, or they at least had been talking about him moving to guard. I'm wondering if there were some things going on behind the scenes that Connor Williams just felt like writing's on the wall. I'm not going to be starting at center, and maybe they weren't going to be starting him. Who knows? There may have been some things on the wall there that just made Williams think, you know what? This isn't working out. I'm not exactly enjoying football anymore, so I'm going to retire. But ever since that move was made by Connor Williams to decide to abruptly retire coming out of that bye, Timmy's doing a pretty good job in the last several games. He's playing good football, and the offensive line has been so bad most of this season. But the last couple weeks, you've started to see things start to shift a little bit. Abraham Lucas is back from his knee injury, and he looks healthy. That was the biggest concern I had. Was this going to be something that was going to be lingering? He is running and moving like he did his rookie year. He is playing really good football right now. And they've got a rookie out of Utah, Satoa Lamea, who has started the last 2 games, and he has brought the nastiness that this team has been missing up front. He had a pancake on Zach Charbonnet's 51-yard touchdown run this past week. It was on a 330-pound defensive tackle, too. He took Tonga and just threw him to the ground. And he has been getting out in space on pulling assignments and getting to corners and safeties in the secondary. He is really playing well these first couple starts since they plugged him in the lineup. And it seems like now with those 3, with Oluwatimi, Lamea, and Lucas, they've now got some continuity and some chemistry building, and that's why we're seeing better results. I mean, Geno Smith got hit twice the entire game against Arizona on Sunday. They rushed for over 170 yards for the first time since January 2023, the end of the 2022 season. That offensive line is starting to come together a little bit. It's still small sample size. We need to see more, but there's reason to be encouraged, at least, with that offensive line right now.
Yeah, Kenneth is probably wondering when he was watching that game, like, where have all these openings been when I was out there running the football? But if they continue, then, of course, Kenneth will reap the benefits as well. Let's talk about some of the injuries because there are some. Every team has them, and Seahawks are no different. So it looks like, well, first of all, start with Kenneth. Does it look like Kenneth's going to miss another week?
I would suspect that there's a pretty good chance he's not playing this weekend. And I think it's a little easier to not rush him back when you see the way that Zach Charbonnet ran this past weekend. And this has been kind of a debate, Greg, in Seattle. And I was on the other side of the fence for a long time. There have been people that have been wondering if Zach Charbonnet was a better fit for Ryan Grubb's offense than Ken Walker. And I have been on the side where Ken Walker is just a more dynamic player. I think Ken Walker is the better fit. I'm starting to at least bridge that fence a little bit right now because Ken Walker, as good as he is very indecisive at times. Yeah. And he has this desire to bounce everything out wide and try to hit a home run on every single play. Yeah. And that has backfired a lot for Seattle's run game. And I don't think that he gets his foot in the ground and just takes the 3 yards that's given to him enough. And Zach Charbonnet, you don't have to worry about that. Zach Charbonnet is a no-nonsense, downhill, thump ya, I'm going to break tackle style runner. And if you look at Ryan Grubb at Washington before he came to the NFL, the running back that they had last year, Dylan Johnson, ran for over 1,100 yards. Dylan Johnson was a 4.7 guy. He's not a burner.
No, he's a physical guy. Yeah.
He's a downhill, no-nonsense runner. Zach Charbonnet ran in the 4.4, so he's a much more athletic version of Dylan Johnson. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe that is a better fit in this offense.
Could be.
He just seems to fit, and they're running gap schemes really well. It seems like the stuff that they are running well, that is their bread and butter, that's becoming their identity, that Zach Charbonnet maybe fits that better than Ken Walker does.
If that would be the case, and again, I'm just going off on a weird one here, but let's just say that's the case. Do you see any way possible that Seattle then decides, well, we've got an asset here in Kenneth Walker. Let's go ahead and trade him and see if we can get something back in return. What's his contract situation like?
Next year will be the last year of his rookie contract. I don't think Seattle would go down that road because I think that having 2 good running backs is a really good thing.
Yes, it is.
And I don't think John Schneider wants to go into next year's draft thinking, oh boy, we got to find somebody else that we team up with Zach Charbonnet. Now maybe Kenny McIntosh is that guy. Their number 3 running back had a good week last week. First time he really got extended carries in his NFL career. But I don't think they want to do that. And I still think Ken Walker has a ton of value.
Oh, yeah.
He's been hindered by the way the offensive line is played. But I do wonder, is he the kind of back that is going to thrive in a situation where your key plays are running counter tray, power, duo? We had some success running behind duo in the Jets game, but that downhill style may not necessarily fit with what his strengths are. And so it does
100%.
creates at least an interesting discussion here.
It does.
For Seattle's front office.
And we'll definitely talk about it in the offseason, but there's a lot of football to be played. So let's continue on the injuries. So DK, I would guess he's going to be okay this week. I see some of these other players have skipped practice. I don't know if they're okay. I mean, DK Lucas and Trey Brown and Reed in the secondary. How are those guys, especially Brown?
Well, Trey Brown hasn't really been playing much other than special teams because of Josh Jobe, who I mentioned earlier. Brown was struggling in the first 3 or 4 games this year, and then he got an ankle injury, and it opened the door for Josh Jobe to get a practice squad promotion, and he played really well for a couple starts. And this is what, listen, I mentioned it with the linebackers earlier. Mike McDonald has been masterful at pushing personnel buttons. And this is just another example with Josh Jobe coming in as a guy that the Eagles didn't have room for in their roster. They cut him. Seahawks signed to the practice squad, and all he's done in 6 starts, if you look at Pro Football Focus's charting, he is in the top 20 in passer rating against among qualified corners. He is in the top 20 in completion percentage against, and he's in the top 20 for limited yards after the catch. If guys do get catches on him, he's quickly getting him to the ground. Josh Jobe has been fantastic for this team. So it's made it that Trey Brown really is just a special teams guy at this point. And I'm wondering if rookie Nehemiah Pritchett might end up leapfrogging Brown now. He just has not been able to build on anything here in his last season on his rookie contract.
Yeah, and on defense, and again, that linebacking duo there of Jones and Knight, as you talked about, those guys, not a coincidence that the defense has taken off with the 2 of them back there. And Nwosu also. I mean, this is perfect timing for him to be coming back. Do you think he's healthy? Do you hear that he's healthy and now it's just about him catching up with everybody else?
Yeah, he's just got to get his legs underneath him. He's missed so many games the last 2 years. And a lot of fans have been pushing the button of injury prone. But you look at the track record here, he's had some bad luck injuries, including a dirty chop block that was made by Wyatt Teller of the Browns in the preseason finale. That's just a bad luck injury on a play that probably shouldn't happen. The guy shouldn't be making the hit that he made on it. He looked really good on 21 snaps the other day against Arizona, a reduced workload, obviously coming back. They were going to ease him back in. He only had 1 tackle and 1 quarterback hit, but there were several run plays that he allowed his teammates to make plays by blowing up a pulling guard and forcing the running back to cut back into the teeth of the defense. Oh, there's number 99 Leonard Williams ready to eat me alive at the line of scrimmage. Uchenna Nwosu made those plays happen, though. So I think bringing him in, as good as Boye Mafe and Derek Hall have been, Uchenna Nwosu is still the best edge defender on this football team when he's healthy. So this has been a number 1 ranked defense the last 4 weeks, mostly without him. As long as he can avoid the bad injury luck that he's had and he can stay healthy down the stretch here, this is like adding a Pro Bowler at the trade deadline, but you're just getting him in week 14.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Hall's played nice, so has Mafe, but you're right, Nwosu's the guy, so getting him back would be a big, big boost to their pass rush. And then in the secondary, we talked about Jobe. Kobe Bryant, when did he make the switch to safety? Because, we followed him in college. He was the winner of what was the award again?
The Thorpe Award.
Thorpe
Award at Cincinnati. Yep.
Beating his teammate Sauce Gardner for the award, but that's college. And then it just didn't, he didn't take off in any NFL right away, but now it looks like he's found a home at safety. And then of course, also pairing him with Julian Love. Boy, what a nice signing that's been.
That safety group the last 4 or 5 weeks has been outstanding too, because now Rayshon Jenkins is your number 3 safety, and he's playing more of a money safety role, but he's doing a nice job when they're plugging him in. But Kobe Bryant had a really good rookie year as a slot corner for the Seahawks. And then last season, he was battling a foot injury almost the entire year. I think he only dressed for 6 games. And there were murmurs that he wasn't even going to make this roster coming out of training camp just because of the depth that Seattle had. But Mike Macdonald latched onto this kid early in the process. He loved his work ethic on the practice field. He loved his versatility. He loved his passion for football. These are things that we are seeing coming up with all these roster decisions that are being made. Lamea being the latest at the guard spot, plugging him in because I like the way he's practicing. He is rewarding guys for that. Kobe Bryant really made that full switch to safety this year. He kind of put his feet in the water a little bit last year in the final season with Pete Carroll. Okay. But this was the year that they really just decided, hey, corner, there's not a spot for you right now with the team that we've got, but we can move you to safety, and we think you could be a really good safety. All he's done since coming into the starting lineup in week 7 is intercept 3 passes. So you're seeing the quarterback ball skills. He had a forced fumble last week. He's maybe been one of their 3 best tacklers on defense in terms of consistency. And then Julian Love. What can you say about Julian Love? I think Julian Love's playing at an all-pro level, and I just think it's hilarious that we're going into this game against the Green Bay Packers, who have another former New York Giants safety in Xavier McKinney, who is leading the NFL with 7 interceptions. I mean, is there a franchise in the NFL that has botched more good talent than the New York Giants? I mean, Leonard Williams is playing Defensive Player of the Year caliber. Julian Love's playing like an all-pro safety with interceptions, making a ton of tackles, just leading that defense on the back end. McKinney, Saquon in Philadelphia. I mean, you would think the Giants would have a good team, but
yeah, right.
All these, you could build a playoff team with all the guys they've lost in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, whoever scouted those players, if and if there was somebody that was I know the general manager role. Sometimes, I mean, I know, especially anybody out there in the Northwest that's a Vancouver fan. I'm a Vancouver Canucks fan, and of course we had a GM. That was very good at scouting, very good at drafting players, has drafted a ton of good players, but didn't really know how to become a real good general manager, made really bad moves, trades, things of that nature. And that seems like what the Giants have done. They've drafted well, they've scouted well, but they don't know how to handle these guys. They don't have to put them in the cap the right way. That's just the NFL. And like you said, Seattle's taking full advantage. Byron Murphy, how's he looking? First round draft pick. Matter of fact, Dave Syvertson, our lead scout, had him as rookie of the week, I believe, last week for our lads on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think he is way outplaying his production. He only has a partial sack this year, but this run defense has been so much better when he's been in the lineup. He missed 3 games earlier this year, and teams were just running all over him. His ability to eat double teams and take up space and disrupt the line of scrimmage, he's getting plenty of pressure on quarterbacks. It's just not turning into sacks right now. Okay. But I think he is playing at a much higher level than what the statistical line would suggest to you. And I think he's been a big part of the reason that the last 4 or 5 games, the Seahawks are giving up less than 98 rushing yards per game. They've been able to really fix that issue. And I think number 91's been a big part of that. And he's also contributing with the interior pass rush as well.
Okay. And then, so offensive line then, right now, you think that what you see with Lucas again coming back, with the rookie now starting, and by the way, this is another interesting note. This happens every year. You've got 2 rookie guards, and the rookie that was in the 6th round is playing over the rookie that was drafted in the 3rd round. That just shows you the draft is not a perfect science. But anyway, do you think that this line setup right now is the line setup that we're going to see the rest of the year?
It should be. Anthony Bradford was the starting right guard up until a couple of weeks ago, and he suffered an ankle injury. He's on injured reserve. Even if he comes back before the end of the regular season, I think it would be malpractice to put him back in the starting lineup with the way that Satoa Lamea is playing. He is playing so much better than what Bradford was leading the NFL in sacks given up by guards. He was leading the league in penalties. That's not good. I mean,
no,
I just think at this point, he's a young player still. He's only in his second year. Not that you're giving up on Bradford necessarily, but I just don't think with the way that this line is constructed, they need a more athletic moving guard for all the gap schemes that they're going to be running. And Anthony Bradford isn't that guy. So Toa Lamea is. I thought Christian Haynes would be, and I'm still of the belief that he could be a long-term starter for Seattle, but he has not played well when he's had his limited opportunities this year. And the play strength looks to be the biggest issue. He's got to hit the weight room and get stronger in the offseason. And I think if he can do that, there's still a lot of talent there. I could see him and Lamea being your two starting guards long-term.
Yeah.
Tomlinson is just on a one-year deal as kind of that veteran stopgap. But for right now, Lamea is clearly the better player. And he was a 4-time All Pac-12 selection. It's not like this guy came out of nowhere. I had a 3rd-round grade on him. So when Seattle picked him to 6th, I thought, oh, this is exciting. But I also had a late 1st, early 2nd grade on Christian Haynes. So both those guys were players I was really excited about where Seattle got them. Haynes just hasn't been as pro-ready as I thought he was going to be.
And they all come out and to the NFL and, they develop differently. And that's all probably it is. I'd be very excited if I'm a Seattle fan, knowing that like maybe Haynes is the left guard of the future, Lamea at right guard, Oluwatimi at center, Cross, Lucas. There you go. We're set.
That's a really exciting young offensive line that you could have 2 seasons with minimum.
Yes, before one of them needs a bigger contract and you have to replace him, and there you go. How's Lockett? Because he's been the quiet guy in the receiving core. He's still playing, so why has he been quiet? Is it just because of the development of Smith and Jigba?
Yeah, I think this really all boils down to him clearly being the number 3 target at this point. And he's had a few games this year where he's jumped out and showed I'm still Tyler Lockett, but he's in his 10th year. He is not the field stretcher that he once was. And so that's taken away a significant part of his game. And it just feels like he has really, like I said, he's faded into that number 3 role. He is still a capable receiver, but Jackson Smith and Jigba right now is playing like a top 5 receiver. Like he has been lights out the last 4 weeks. And DK Metcalf is still DK Metcalf. And so there's one football to go around. And then you add in the fact that they've got some tight ends that they're getting the football to. Noah Fant's back healthy. They're starting to get him more involved. A.J. Barner, the rookie out of Michigan, that has been one of the biggest surprises for me because I thought he was going to be more of a inline blocking tight end. He didn't catch a lot of passes in college. He's already got 2 touchdown catches this year. He has been a pleasant surprise in that regard. And if he continues to develop as a receiver, A.J. Barner could be a top 10 caliber NFL tight end very quickly because of his skill set, already a polished blocker. But again, they just got enough weapons that I think Tyler Lockett, there's been some games where he's just kind of become an afterthought. I still think there's going to be a game, and maybe if this Sunday against Green Bay, there's going to be a game where Tyler Lockett is going to show up and have some really big numbers because the targets just have not been there for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. A few more things before I let you go. First of all, this we see the depth chart here, the Oilers depth chart. As far as injured reserve, are there any players that Seattle at this point in time needs to have back, or they pretty much have everybody back that they need to win in the postseason?
I don't think there are any players on injured reserve right now that I'm just circling like, man, if that player comes back, that's really going to be a difference maker, whether they make the playoffs or not. Uchenna Nwosu was clearly that guy, and they activated him last week. As I mentioned, Anthony Bradford was not playing well before his injury. Lamea has been much better. And they have Christian Haynes as the backup right now. I don't see him as a guy that they need to have come back either. Maybe Kayvon Wallace as a depth guy, but Rayshon Jenkins is your number 3 safety right now. So I don't know where Kayvon Wallace fits other than special teams. It seems right now like they've got some guys there that could help this team if somebody else went down, but they don't have any real difference makers that are on injured reserve. And honestly, that's a good situation to be
in. Good news.
At this stage of the season.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so what do you think this roster as is a championship roster?
I do. I think that this is a team that has gone through a lot of growing pains with first-time coordinators, a first-time head coach this year. The offense is still what I am waiting to erupt because Geno Smith's thrown 12 picks this year. But if you go back and watch the film, and I've charted this, I would credit 8 of them to him. Or, I would credit 8 of those picks to him. 4 of them minimum, I would say, bad luck or fluky picks. They've had a lot of things that have worked against Geno Smith this year. The offensive line has struggled. There's been a lot of games where he has just been barely getting the ball off or he's getting battered to a pulp. And yet he's leading the league in passing yards. He's in the top 3 in completion percentage. He is balling out every week, avoiding sacks. And it just feels like this offense is on the cusp of finally breaking out. We started to see it a little bit in Arizona, but we haven't seen him put 4 quarters together yet, where the passing game and the running game were both working in sync. If they can get that here in the closing 4 weeks, if they can get to that point where the offense is starting to play like I think they're capable of, and this defense continues to play the way they have or close to how they're playing right now, this is a team you don't want to play in the playoffs because defense travels, and if the run game gets going, running games travel. And when you've got a seasoned veteran, I know there are a lot of Seahawks fans that don't agree with me on this, but I think Geno Smith can absolutely go into a road environment, especially if he has to go somewhere like Detroit. He has played incredible football in Detroit every time he's played there. He loves playing in domes. I think Geno Smith can win road playoff games, but you have to have enough blocking for him to get the job done. So I think this team could do some damage in January, but they got to get there first with the Rams being right on their tail. And the Rams play them in week 18, they got to get in the playoffs first. I think if they can get there, this is a team that could be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and of course, this week, this Sunday night is a really big one because if you look at the schedule, 3 of the next 4 are not going to be easy. You do get Minnesota after the Green Bay game. That one is at home as well. Then on the road against the Bears and the Rams. So 3 out of the 4 are potentially against playoff teams. But winning tonight would really go a long way because when you're hot and you've got the winning streak going and the other team has got this kind of lull going, even though they're playing the Patriots and the Panthers the next 2 weeks, and I'm sure Arizona would like to get some of their confidence going, this is the time that you want to keep the pressure on those other teams like Arizona and the Rams, who just came off a big win last night. So tell me a little bit about this matchup with the Packers as we wrap up. What are you looking at? What do you like about the Seahawks' chances regarding the way the Packers play overall?
If you would have asked me that question 3 weeks ago, I would have said this matchup scares the daylights out of me because Green Bay can run the football with the best of them. They're physical. They like to play 2 tight end sets. Those were things that were all recipes to just dominate the Seahawks early this year. That has not been the case, though, in this 4-game winning streak, and it feels like the confidence is now at a place where Seattle can say, no, we're not letting you run the ball all over us. Jordan Love, we're going to force you to beat us. We're going to get some pressure on you and see if we can coax you into some bad decisions, which he has been more than willing to do at times in his first couple of years as a starter. So I think Seattle matches up fairly well with them from a defensive perspective. They have to slow down Josh Jacobs. That is number 1, number 2, number 3 priority. You cannot let him take over the game. If the running game starts rolling, it's going to be really tricky for Seattle to get the job done. As for the offensive side, Green Bay is not a team that gives up big plays downfield. They've given up 2 passing touchdowns this year of 20-plus yards through the air. They are number 1 in defensive EPA against deep passes. So, your chances of making a lot of big plays against them downfield are slim to none. The Green Bay takes those away. Xavier McKinney's a big part of that. But they're one of the worst defense in the NFL defending the middle of the field. Jared Goff last week, 14 for 17, 152 yards and 2 touchdowns on in-breaking routes, according to NFL Next Gen stats. If I'm Geno Smith, I'm salivating about that because I've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, and DK Metcalf can run those in-breaking routes. So can Tyler Lockett, but Smith and Jigba is the one I'm saying, oh boy, this has a chance to be a huge game for JSN, attacking the middle of the field. And if you can do that over and over again, it's going to force Green Bay to make some adaptations to try to account for that. That's when you might be able to get a couple of those shot plays to DK Metcalf on the outside. The key is going to be protection, and can they get just enough of a run game that they're able to take advantage of that? Because this has been a problem all year for Green Bay, defending the middle of the field. They're probably the worst passing defense in the league against those particular passes.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jeff Risdon from the Detroit Lions podcast, and he talked about how it is a perfect matchup for the Detroit Lions because the Lions love passing the football in the middle of the field, which is why they have so much success against the Green Bay Packers. So we'll see if Seattle can keep that going. All right. By the way, the Packers. Now this is a strange little trend out there. If you're wagering on the game, the Packers have covered 10 straight games versus NFC West opponents, and they're 3-0 in that mark this year because they've played all three. This is going to be their fourth NFC West opponent, so that could be interesting. But Seattle has covered 14 of the last 17 versus teams with a winning percentage of 500 or more in the NFC. So that just tells you right there.
Something's got to give.
Something has to give, but it also is very impressive that Seattle has been that good against quality NFC opponents. So you know that more than anyone, not necessarily by understanding the trend, but just the overall feel of when Seattle is playing against really good teams in the conference. What is your feeling about the game on Sunday night? Give me a pick if you like, or just what do you think the result will possibly be?
Well, I'm going to go against the spread here because the Packers are 2.5-point favorites. I think the Seahawks are going to make this different than that score. I know there's a lot of people I've talked to that think that that's not enough. There's a lot of people that think the Packers should be heavier favorites. I don't see that on film right now. The last few games. I see two teams that are very similar in a lot of ways. I see two quarterbacks. I think Jordan Love and Geno Smith share a lot of the same qualities. They make eye-popping throws over and over again, and then sometimes there's some harebrained decisions that end up leading to interceptions. But they both are guys that can win games late. I mean, they are both underrated athletes. Geno Smith is a guy that can take off and still run at 34, and he can do some damage. And Jordan Love, I think his legs are a big part of Green Bay's offense. I think this is a very even game on paper, but I think playing at home, Seattle has struggled there most of this year, but they won their last home game. I think that the way this team is playing right now, I think the fans are going to go crazy. I think this is going to be one of the loudest home games there's been in a while. I think that plays into this game quite a bit. How does Jordan Love handle this? This is going to be the first time he's ever played at Lumen Field. How is he going to deal with that? I have a feeling Seattle covers that. I really do.
I agree. Matter of fact, Jim Feist and I, my partner over on Proline TV, one of the legends in handicapping, we both, when we saw that line, we actually thought that the line should have been more respectful towards Seattle after what they've accomplished since the bye, winning 4 straight games as a dog. Haven't they proved enough? And it's not like the Packers have played. Look, the Packers are still looking for their signature win this year. They have not looked like the old Packers team last year. They've won a lot of games, but they've not necessarily covered and blown out teams. So the Packers have not played anything like the way that they played last year. Maybe we'll see that eventually, but we haven't seen that yet. And there's no way Seattle should be 65-1 to win the Super Bowl, and the Packers are 18-1. And I think Seattle is definitely very, very close talent-wise to Green Bay, and I think we're going to see that on Sunday night as well. I like Seattle to win the game. So, Corbin?
Yeah, I'm really curious if the trend that we've seen for most of the last 20 years holds, where Green Bay doesn't win in Seattle very often, and Seattle doesn't win at Lambeau. It has been a home-dominated series. The last time the Seahawks lost at home to the Packers was, I believe, Aaron Rodgers' first year as a starter, and that was pre-Pete Carroll. So it has been a long time. Now, all those guys are gone. There's like 3 players in Seattle's roster that played in the last game against the Packers. And there's like 4 Packers that played in the last game against the Seahawks. So this is going to be a new matchup. You've got new coaches, but it hasn't really mattered over the last 20 years. There's been different QBs. There's been different coaches. It has been a home-dominated series for the most part.
Well, hopefully Seattle won't have to worry about going to Green Bay in the postseason then. Stick to the domes. Go to Minnesota. That would be a good play. Go like Minnesota and then Detroit. Of course, you're going to have to play Detroit or Philadelphia more than likely. You don't want to play Detroit and Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm a purist, though. I like the outdoor games. Like I know the players don't, but When Seattle played in Minnesota before their new stadium was open, that -8-degree game, that was before I was a reporter. I was actually in the stands for that game.
Oh, were you?
That was
cold.
That was the coldest I've ever been in my life, but it was really cool.
It is. I'm with you. But like you said, if Geno is really good in domes, and Seattle fans obviously want this team to advance.
In that case, you're rooting for Detroit. You're rooting for Atlanta to make the playoffs.
That's
you
true
already
too.
beat Atlanta at Atlanta, and Geno had his best game of the season. I mean,
there you go.
He loves playing in domes. So let those dome teams, Minnesota, whatever, let those dome teams win so that Geno Smith, if he has to go on the road, he's playing in domes. It gives you a lot better chance to pull off some upsets in the playoffs.
Corbin, I appreciate it. It's always great catching up with you. You do a great job. You're one of the best in the business here. You're one of our favorite and most qualified OFN insiders, and I appreciate it. Appreciate always taking your time to talk to us, and I look forward to getting the opportunity to talk to you when Seattle is in the playoffs, and then we could talk some playoff football. And also want to remind everybody to check out the Locked On Seahawks podcast. When are you going to be doing that again?
We'll have our show coming up here in a few hours, our Blue Friday show. We'll have our game plan for a Seahawks victory and picks to click, and I'll dish out my predictions as well.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Corbin. We'll talk to you hopefully around playoff time.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
You got it.